Hi everyone. This is a really crazy one. I mean really crazy. As I record this, just yesterday was Thanksgiving, and please feel free to share with me what you are thankful for. Because in the big picture, as I sat down to Thanksgiving, or as we vegans like to call it, Thanksgiving, Friendsgiving, I was thankful that I don't have cancer. And you're probably saying, wait, what? Who says you have cancer? Well, that's what I wanted to know. About 3 months ago, I went to a local doctor in Sarasota, a hematologist, and when I called to make the appointment, which was months before that, they said oncology, hematology and oncology. I'm going like, oncology? What's that about? The reason I was calling is I had been referred by my arthritis doctor, who I see regularly for bone density. And finally, after all these years, I crossed over into the dark side of osteoporosis. And keep in mind, I've had osteopenia, that diagnosis, for a couple of decades. And nobody ever got upset. They said, just go to the gym, do weight-bearing exercises, keep running, yada, yada. Most of which I did except for the weight-bearing, especially in this last couple of years since COVID, and I stopped traveling so much and having the free time that I did to work out beyond running, just beyond running itself and training for that, and going to the gym and doing weight bearing, I became a whole lot more sedentary. So it didn't surprise me at the age of 68 that I was crossing over that line into osteoporosis. My mother and grandmother had it from an early age. Most likely, it was the contributor to both of them breaking their hips later in life, in their 80s. So anyway, as a result of one of the readings, the arthritis doctor said, I want you to go get some blood work. And so it was when that blood work came back that I was told to go see the hematologist. And, when I'm walking through the door of the doctor's office, I'm seeing, women with no hair, and I'm going like, what am I doing here? And so the short story is, I'm going to try and keep it short. That doctor had me do a whole bunch of tests, the oncologist in Sarasota. So I did a bone marrow biopsy, I did a full CAT scan, and a whole bunch of other blood work that hadn't been done up until that point. And so a few weeks later, after all the tests come back, he calls me in and says, you have a kind of bone marrow cancer that is called Waldenstrom's, and it's got another long name after that. And it's basically a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So usually with non-Hodgkin's lymphomas, and he told me to Google. It's like most doctors don't tell you to Google. And I did, and it's a more curable kind of cancer, generally, unless it turns into something like one of my Cancer Project cooking class students had, which is a more severe kind of bone marrow cancer, and you have a much higher risk of breaking bones. And that's called multiple myeloma. This was not that. And at first the doctor thought it was something called MGUS, which is the precursor to Waldenstrom's. But after doing all these tests, he concluded that it was Waldenstrom's. And at this point, I'm going like, wait, what? How do I have cancer? And so he said at that point, you are the most fit person I've ever seen in my practice. And at that point I said, I think it's time for a second opinion. And so I made an appointment with Moffitt Cancer Center up in Tampa, about an hour from Sarasota. And a lot of people go there. It's sort of our local version of MD Anderson. And the woman who was in my cooking class who had multiple myeloma, Corky Carlson, I've actually been in touch with her since all of this happened. And she had been given up for dead about 15, 17 years ago when she came to my class with multiple myeloma. She already had broken some bones and had not been given very long to live. Because when you get one of these diagnoses, it can be pretty rugged. Now, she is still very much alive and is counseling other cancer patients and doing just well. So she has lived way beyond her life expectancy back in those days. Now, they have come up with lots of different targeted drugs, and I understand that that can be very helpful in some of these cases. But back to my story. So I chug on up to Moffitt, and just kind of like, this just can't be. And they do it differently there. They looked at the results from my tests in Sarasota, and then they did their own blood work that day, an hour before my appointment. And I saw, who I was told, a doctor who was the one of the leading experts in Waldenstrom's in the US. So I felt pretty confident. When I sat down with him, he said, "You don't have cancer." And I burst into tears. I said, "Why was I told that I had?" And he said, the Sarasota doctor did a kind of test in the pathology, looking at the pathology that we don't do here. We don't use that to diagnose Waldenstrom's. It's only through the changes in your blood. And yes, you have some little changes in your blood that would put you back in the category of IMGUS, which means you have maybe a 20% chance of getting Waldenstrom's 20 years from now. Okay, I'm going to be 80, and a 20% chance of getting cancer, considering, if you know my story, my mom and both sisters had breast cancer, and I've been doing all this running just to show that vegans can run and race and do well, but to also try and keep the gene pool pretty quiet when it comes to cancer, in particular breast cancer. And as it turns out, half the cases in my family were environmental and not genetic. Only 10% of all breast cancer cases are genetic. So, I'm doing all this running. Where are we now? 245K races that I placed in since 2006. 5K or longer races. There are a few 10Ks and one half marathon that I placed in this group since 2006, just on plants. And I'm just doing this so hard, just trying to beat the odds, and to be told I had cancer, and then to be told I don't have cancer. So I was believing that I had cancer for a good 2 months until I went up to Moffitt. And of course, the fun thing was then called the Sarasota doctor, and he said, "So, you want to have a little chat?" And indeed we did. I just had that appointment a couple days ago, and it was fun to watch him dance, because I said, "Do I have cancer or not?" And he said, "Well, according to some," the dog here is trying to get in on the act, "according to some ways of looking at this, we could say that your blood, that this one test that I did is an indicator. But again," he said, "you are the most fit person I've seen in my practice." And it was just interesting to watch him kind of dance around this, saying, well, because I tried to pinpoint him, being a former TV reporter that I said, "So what are you going to write on the form for Medicare?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not going to put that you have Waldenstrom's." He said, but what do you want me to put?" And I'm going wait, you're the doctor. Are you disagreeing with the doctor at Moffitt? And he said, "No, I'm going to be in agreement with him and just put you back to having IMGUS and not Waldenstrom's." So we left it at that. And I get checked every 6 months. Sorry. To see if the blood levels change, and we'll see. But they went through all these symptoms, and he checked my glands. No, my glands weren't swollen. My spleen, is it enlarged? No, it isn't. Was I having profuse sweating, night sweats? I haven't had night sweats. I've been vegan, so I got to avoid all the symptoms of menopause, including hot flashes and night sweats. So that's the story. And for this period of time that I believe that I had cancer. You know, it's hard not to go down this rabbit hole. I told very few people because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm this vegan author, influencer. People, you know, when I post my placing in my age group, as I'm still doing, you know, people say, you're such an inspiration. It's like, I don't want to destroy that, you know, if I've got cancer. You know, it was like this big guilt thing that I was doing on myself. And turns out I don't even have it. And yet, I think, you know, what it really is, and also just, you know, keep in mind that the folks at Moffitt said your bone marrow biopsy was completely clean. The CAT scan, completely clean. So when you know, the doctor, when they kind of, it's like when you say, don't put your pee up your nose, and then, you know, the kid puts the pee up their nose. It's kind of like, oh, maybe I do have these symptoms. You know, neuropathy is another symptom. And, you know, I've been a runner for 40 years. So, you know, I have a few aches and pains, not too many. But, you know, your mind just does, you go down this rabbit hole of thinking, well, maybe I do. And I felt so relieved when I found out that I didn't have cancer, that it was such a relief off your mind. And what's important is I spoke to I have a couple of running friends who are nurses and in the healthcare profession. They said it's really important to not focus on the negative when you hear stuff like this, and just stay totally positive, focused, and to laugh every day. I've had a couple of people say, you know, you got to watch something funny on YouTube or TV or wherever you watch things, and just, you know, have a good laugh. So it releases endorphins, oxytocin, the same thing, you know, petting the dog. The same thing from breastfeeding. I was a La Leche League leader, so we know all about oxytocin and how good it is for your brain. So if you have a dog, hey, Princess, come here. Princess, come here, baby. Yeah, I know, you're on squirrel patrol. Yes, she's such a sweetheart. And we'll just turn the camera down here. But that means I have to take it off here. But we're going to say goodbye. And tell me your crazy doctor stories if you have them. And I could use some kind of a reinforcement here. I mean, I think doctors mean well. They really do. But this one was really a weird one. All right, everyone. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Let me hear how it went. And if I can help you in any way, let me know. Gotta run. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't.